Good afternoon, everyone joining us on Facebook today. I am delighted to welcome you to our discussion on global geopolitical issues that shape our world today, especially from a resilience perspective. Very timely conversation, Ambassador, as Romania and Japan just signed a strategic partnership in March this year. We find ourselves in an era of new challenges and rapidly evolving threats, both physically and digitally. Russian illegal war on sovereign Ukraine is a topic of paramount importance that has far-reaching implications, even as far as the shore of the Pacific Ocean. The resilience of our institutions is being tested not just in Eastern Europe, but globally. Simultaneously, the ever-looming specter of cyber and hybrid warfare poses fresh quandaries for governments, corporations, and individuals alike. In the spotlight today is the Euro-Atlantic resilience alongside Japan's exceptional resilience building efforts, Black Sea region along with the broader Pacific region, each bearing its unique strategic and geopolitical significance. Joining us today to unravel these complexities are two distinguished guests and seasoned diplomats. It is my honor to introduce His Excellency Mr. Hiroshi UEDA, the Japanese ambassador to Romania, and His Excellency Mr. Viorel Istichoia Budura, former European Union ambassador to Japan and former managing director for Asia and the Pacific at the European External Action Service. Both our guests bring with them an intimate understanding of the dynamics between Europe and Asia. Ambassadors, thank you for accepting my invitation today. So, without further ado, let's delve into the heart of our conversation. We have an illegal aggression that started not very far from our borders. The Russian illegal and criminal invasion on sovereign Ukraine. Given the unfolding situation in Ukraine, how does Japan perceive its potential implication on Asian security dynamics, particularly for Japan itself? Are any steps being taken to adapt Japan's security arrangement in response to these developments?
Well,
Please,
thank you very
you may
much
begin.
first of all, thank you very much for having me. I'm very honored to be here to have a significant debate with Your Excellency Mr. Istichoia. And first of all, I'd like to mention that this is as you said, the very beginning. I mean, the restarting of the new era between Japan and Romania, because in March, Japan and Romania has signed a strategic partnership, which is the highest level of the diplomatic relation. So we are, at a new stage now, and thinking about that against this backdrop, we have to talk about the Ukraine. I mean, Russian unprovoked aggression against Ukraine. And Japan is from the first beginning last year to February 24th, we are standing with Ukraine and standing with Europe and standing with EU and the states like-minded countries. And we are, we have introduced a very stiff sanctions against Russia. And we have supported Ukraine very, significantly. I mean, the total amount of the aid, I mean, support of the money is 7.6 billion US dollars in total. Well, it's not only to Ukraine country itself, but including the neighboring countries, including Romania. In that sense, we are supporting Ukraine and we are tackling this matter with the like-minded countries. And the point is that it's not only the issue of Europe or, one region, because it is the issue of the fundamental value. I mean, we have to, defend the fundamental order based on the rule of law. And this is not only the matter of Europe, it is also it's a matter of all over the world. And for example, our Prime Minister, Mr. Kishida, is always saying that Ukraine today might be East Asia tomorrow. So it's not, I repeat, it's not only the matter of one region, but the matter of the whole world. You know, it's matter of the value of the humankind. Thank you very much.
Understand. So Japan stands with Ukraine and stand with Ukrainians, allies and partners to defend democracy, rule of law, human rights, everything that the Ukrainian soldiers are fighting for in the trenches of Bakhmut or any other else. Mr. Isichirabudra, you worked in Japan for some years. You have a tremendous experience. You have known Japan before the Russian aggression. And I'm quite sure that you're following the developments as they come. There's been a lot of chat on international summits and meetings, and Japan's Prime Minister statement recently. Do you see a change? Do you see Japan responding to these new developments in Ukraine in terms of security arrangements? Do you see a depart from the pacifism to realism? How do you see Japan moving from outside?
First, I'd like also, like His Excellency Ambassador Ueda, to express my gratitude for being invited to join such a discussion, a timely one, as you said, Mr. Stavitaško. And at the same time, I would say one which would pursue a very important objective, link the main task of this center for resilience in looking around, and we both have diplomats, to things which are relevant for the diplomacy today. And your question comes very much in this way. In what sense? Japan, on both accounts, is an example of resilience in terms of internal, societal, national resilience, and in terms, I would say, as a major protagonist of the regional and international developments. And under the current situations, which were described by yourself and by His Excellency Ambassador Ueda, under a crisis which is challenging the capacity of the people to react, to defend the liberal international order, and to find ways of building up an important solidarity with the victims, to build up solidarity in defending the values which we cherish, I would say Japan, especially given its national traditions and culture, has doing a lot of things in the recent years, even before the war broke out, even before the crisis. First, because it has a history of having to face the challenges locally, because of geography. The Pacific Ocean and the natural conditions, the circumstances for the whole archipelago of Japan challenged the nation under many occasions. The one which, unfortunately, I witnessed in the sense that it was a huge tragedy was the tsunami and the earthquake in the spring of 2011, then a number of years ago. And the whole nation succeeded to rebuild, to regain trust, confidence in development. And not only that, but even helped other peoples who were victims in the neighborhood, in the regional neighborhood. Then from this point of view, I would say Japan always was very much aware of the challenges coming in a certain regional context because of the natural situation, because of the historical situation. And unfortunately, in the region, there are many threats for the international peace and security. One example is North Korean nuclear program, missiles and nuclear program.
Indeed.
Which unfortunately is not only a local danger, but endangers the whole region and the whole international security. And at the same time, Japan was able to build up good connections with neighbors in a spirit which has allowed Japan to celebrate. I was there in 2015, and again, after 70 years, the fact that since the end of the Second World War, Japan became a representative nation which is building good contribution for the peace and international cooperation. And this is something which gave to Japan the proper credentials to act in a proper way now under the new crisis, the war in Ukraine. Because of that, I would say the new developments, the closer cooperation with NATO. The fact that NATO opened recently, these days, a liaison office, or I don't know exactly how it's called, in Tokyo, the visit of the Secretary General of NATO and the opening of this office. Of course, Secretary General of NATO visited Japan many times, almost every other year. But the fact that already Prime Minister Kishida and the Defense Minister visited Brussels, the NATO headquarters, on various occasions, including the summit, that again, there are talks for the summit this year in Lithuania, in Vilnius, possibly to invite again Japan as a guest of honor, the Prime Minister Kishida. It's something which shows how much the credentials in this respect, Japan, is something which is important, relevant as a model for regional and security in the international community. It's telling us a lot. Secondly, I would say, in terms of regional resilience, Japan is contributing very much to development, not only in Asia and the Pacific, helping ASEAN countries, the 10 nations over there, with a lot of assistance in terms of technology transfer, investments, trade, but also, and that was proved again by the Prime Minister Kishida, by the recent visits to Africa, to Middle East, and I would say even to Europe. Why even to Europe? Because it established partnership, programs of cooperation in which joining hands with the European Union member states for assisting regions in the need, including Ukraine, as mentioned by the ambassador. Then once again, I believe Japan is a good example, and ambassador was kind a few minutes ago to mention the G7 summit taking place these days
now
in Hiroshima.
Yep.
Yeah, which is meaningful because Hiroshima was a victim of the nuclear bomb. And that's again an appeal for the international community, for the whole nations to be aware of the danger of the nuclear weapons. Secondly, for the way in which Hiroshima and the whole Japan was able to reconstruct, to rebuild after the war and becoming I would say, a representative nation for peace. Then I would not formulate this idea in the way of Japan renouncing to the pacifism. I would say rather combining, joining the good traditions of pacifism after the Second World War in the way in which Japan developed, with a new spirit of being aware of the dangers, of the threats, and being able to work with partners, with like-minded partners, with other countries, in a spirit which would defend our values and promote the international cooperation and international resilience.
Absolutely, thank you. Given recent diplomatic movements, where we saw the Chinese President Xi Jinping visiting Moscow, while Prime Minister Kishida traveling to Kiev, there seems to be, to me, an apparent divergence in approaches towards the illegal invasion of sovereign Ukraine by Russia between Japan and China, as you mentioned before. From where you stand, how do you interpret this movement? Would you consider this as each nation aligning itself with one party or the other one?
Well, I'm not sure about that, and I don't have the precise answer for that. But what we have to do, I mean, Japan have to do is to collaborate with like-minded countries, Romania and the EU, and also United States, South Korea, Australia. Well, our countries which have the same value, which cherish the same value and same importance. We have to be in good collaboration with them. And concerning China, it's Japan and China, we are neighbors, of course, geographically, and we have the history of 2,000 years of relationships.
Yes.
So we have many history between the two countries. And what we need concerning China is that China is economically is the second biggest country. Japan used to be the second, but 10, 15 years ago, it was overturned. So, but still, Japan is the third biggest country. So China second, Japan third biggest, economically biggest countries. So we have to, have a dialogue and, make a constructive and stable relation between Japan and China. Well, I think we have to do that, and we have to make every effort to complete, fulfill that thing. And what we have to address to China is that they have to, it's a very big country, population, it might be, overturned by India, but still it's the first, second biggest population country. So they have China has the responsibility in the international world. So we have to tell them that China has to act accordingly. The meet the expectations of the international world. So fulfill the responsibility of the international world. So, well, what China is doing, I cannot mention precisely about that. But anyway, we have to, tell them that China has to act, mindfully. Well, that's all what I want to say now.
Thank you. My third question that follows up a little bit, considering Japan's legacy on pacifist nation, there has been a recent decision to invest a lot more in the military. Considerable money that will go in the following years in the military capabilities, which marks a significant shift. Could you elaborate on the factors that have led Japan to reconsider its defense policies, if I can put it this way? How does the Japanese public responded to this military defense increase?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for pointing out that a very important point, which under negotiation, to increase the amount of the military unit budget. So it's a very big dialogue, debate inside Japan. But anyway, we have decided launched a new security strategy. New national security strategy last December, which is the very, very big turn, change of that way of thinking of against toward the military, expenditure. Well, concerning this, first I have to talk about the security, resilience. Now the world is at a kind of turning point. The Russian aggression is shaking the fundamental order of the international. And so we have to, increase the resilience. To tackle the change of the international situation. And we have to do two things. One is enhance the resilience of our own. I have to be resilient by ourselves. And another thing is to cooperate with other like-minded countries. And we are doing the first thing. We have to enhance the resilience against the situation now. So it's not the increasement of the military expenditure is not to attack any other countries. It's only for the deterrence, to help protect ourselves. And we have decided actually the percentage of the military expenditure now is only 1% of the GDP. But we have declared that we will double to 2% in 5 years. It's very, significant.
It matches the NATO's 2% military.
To follow the NATO fear. So it's a very big change, but we think it's necessary. And Mr. Skulp asked me about the impression of the Japanese population.
Yeah.
I think most of the people are very, very favorable against this, change, because we are watching the Russian situation, Ukraine situation now, and the change of the international, situation. The only point is, at first, as I told you, the budget. You need money. So where to get collect money is a very big argument now inside Japan. But still, the fundamental concept is shared by everybody, I think.
Being the third economic power in the world, has its advantages, and I'm sure. But you made a remark that I appreciate, and I want to emphasize here at the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center. We understand resilience also from a military point of view, as it contributes to the resilience building effort. Ambassador Sichoya Budura, I'm going to read something that Prime Minister Kishida said 2 days ago. And then I'll ask what you make of it and how do you see it. You know very well that Prime Minister Kishida has a tremendous experience in foreign policy, being one of the longest foreign ministers.
You are going to read in Japanese?
Unfortunately, I cannot do that, but I would have loved to.
Okay. I was afraid of that.
Very short. I want Japan to make large contributions to the peace and stability of the region through diplomacy first and foremost. And then he adds up, but neither diplomacy nor diplomatic language can be persuasive unless they are backed up by an ability to protect the lives and livelihood of the Japanese people. Do you see this as a turn to realism?
I would say very much, if you...
No, it's okay.
It's okay. I can take it already. Then, frankly, I would follow very much what very comprehensively and specifically the ambassador has explained about the military budget and the way in which the new security strategy of Japan is foreseeing an increased contribution for the defense of the country and for the regional and international security and stability. And I would add something which is also coming out right now in the moment in which the Prime Minister Kishida is hosting the G7 summit. Why? And I would say it's very relevant for the way in which this pragmatism and realism should be taken in a, I would say, extended way, in 3 points. First, Japan always was a proponent for multilateral diplomacy, for multilateralism, like the European Union. And I recall years in which Japan was very active in promoting debates, exchange of views at the United Nations for the sake of promoting the reform of the United Nations Security Council in its structure, membership, the rights of voting over there as the veto, as a very special right of opposing to certain issues. And Japan, given its international experience, the pacifism, the economic power, and the performance in trade and investments abroad, was one championing a reform of the United Nations as a whole, the whole system, and the United Nations Security Council for the sake of ensuring a broader representativity at the level of the United Nations Security Council, including by the way in which the membership could be offered to other emerging important nations. I would not name them, but in almost each continent, in each region, there are nations now blessed with more power in terms of economic and trade developments, in terms of political experience, in terms of contribution to international peace and stability. And Japan was among those who was arguing, with good arguments, in favor of an opening of the membership of the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. And I would say the idea of the reforms needed in the international institutions of the multilateral system, it's now embodied in our strategic partnership mentioned already by His Excellency Ambassador UEDA, signed a few months ago while the Romanian president visited Tokyo. And it's a special paragraph which by our, I would say, very much joining our ideas and our support for a reform of the multilateral system for the sake of being able to better address the current challenges and crises. Then this is a point which shows how much Japan is trying to use diplomacy in the right way, in a practical way. This is realism and pragmatism at the same time. Secondly, in the recent, I would say, after becoming prime minister, using his experience as foreign minister for a good number of years, Prime Minister Kishida visited a number of regions where Japan had a certain reach, had good trade partners, but very much it's shown how Japan is aware that the countries in what it's called now Global South have, if you wish, dreams about being more active, more visible, participating better in the way in which now the international order, the reform of international institutions, including multilateral systems, are to be addressed, reshaped. Then Prime Minister did a wonderful thing, inviting at the summit a number of leading countries from the, how shall I call it, Global South, third world emerging economies, like Brazil, like Indonesia, like India. Ambassador just mentioned that India is now the most populous country. Then the Prime Minister invited leading countries from almost each region, from Africa, from the Organization of the African Unity, from the Pacific Forum, the countries who are on the rotating basis, holding now the chair position of these organizations, to being able, in what it's called international partners of the G7, international partners group of G7, to be able to listen to these people. And I would say currently in this age, which some journalists are calling the age of precarity, witnessing so many crises, the Prime Minister offered a good opportunity with the hosting of the summit in Hiroshima to these countries to voice their views, opinions, their way of seeing the things. Maybe sometime different from the Euro-Atlantic community, maybe different from, I don't know, from the United Nations in certain policies, then offering, I would say, a certain opening which is very valuable under the current conditions. And secondly, I would say the initiatives which are putting forward are showing the way in which the Prime Minister is trying, representing Japan's policies, to join the G7 agenda with G20.
Yeah.
As you remember, in November, G20 was slightly reluctant to discuss Ukraine crisis, Russian aggression only, but more trying to couple that with the worries about what were the consequences: energy crisis, food crisis, disruptions of supply chains and transportation connections. Then I would say very much the Prime Minister, by inviting these countries, including Indonesia, the former chair of G20 summit last year, and the next one, India, who is going to chair in November, United States, who is going to chair the APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Forum, also in November, especially to be able to, let's say, review together what are the worries, the priorities of this Global South, and connect that, and to show to the Global South that the developed economies, developed countries in their club, in the G7's framework, are aware that they have to open and work together for defending and maintaining the international order, the principles which are governing this. Then from this point of view, I would say very much the summit, G7 summit, and the way in which Japan shaped the whole agenda is a fantastic answer to the worries of the whole international community.
Absolutely. I want to come back a little bit on resilience, because Japan is an inspiration for us personally. And in terms of resilience, whether we talk about democratic resilience or the multiple pillars of resilience, such as NATO has defined them. In the face of increasing global tensions, democratic resilience has become paramount. We are all aware of Japan's exceptional resilience building efforts. And my question to you, Ambassador, how is Japan strengthening its democratic institution to withstand external and internal threats? Are there any specific initiative or policies in place that you can share with us? Just for example, here in Romania, we are quite challenged, and especially since the aggression in Ukraine, but even before, and it will continue. So most probably with disinformation, it's happening. We have seen it through the pandemic, and sometimes it has really negative consequences. Where is it? Cyber threats. On cyber, Japan is really a country that we look up to it. And we try to share best to share lesson learned and to get the know-how. How do you respond? How is Japan so successful? What or how can we follow Japan's example?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry. I might have said that everybody is in favor of the defense budget increase, but not everybody, of course. Many people. But anyway, concerning your question, it's the democratic resilience. It is one of the most important things. Of course, it's the very foundation of the democratic countries. So we have to tackle the things against this foundation. For example, disinformation. And cybersecurity, something like that. This information, cybersecurity, it disrupts the foundation of the democracy. So we have to tackle that. But it's very difficult. It's not only in the wartime, and it's not, it doesn't have the, boundary. It's across the border. It's all over the world issue. So we are trying to do our best inside our country, of course. But we are also, tackling this matter with other countries, like-minded countries, all over the world. Concerning the tackling of inside Japan, of tackling against cybersecurity, this information inside Japan, we have augmented the authorities. For example, the self-defense agency, ministry has increased the number of staff which are tackling this matter. And also National Police Agency has set up a new, unit to tackle this matter. Like this, we are trying best for ourselves. And also we are talking with many, for example, G7 countries, Quad countries, or, many other countries. And one of the examples is that, for example, NATO, the relation between Japan and NATO is, as Mr. Excellency Mr. Yabuda has just said, it's getting closer and closer. Last year, for the very first time, the Japanese Prime Minister Kishida attended the summit meeting of NATO for the first time. And, foreign minister meeting, Minister Hayashi is attending also. So the relation of NATO, between NATO and Japan, is getting closer. And I think one of the issues which we can collaborate is, for example, disinformation or cybersecurity, which has a very significant, meaning against to tackle this matter. And the last thing we have to think about this is that after the World War II, we have changed the system of the nation, and we have introduced the democracy, very, eagerly. And the point, the very important point is the education, to let people know about the importance and, the hardness to protect the value of the democracy. You have to learn that, every individual has to know about that, the importance. So the education is very important, and we are doing a lot of, effort to educate.
Do children learn about this information at school?
Yeah, well, not specifically like that, but the importance of democracy, to choose the right, opinion, and then choose the right, you have to choose by yourself the right thing. So the fundamental things we have to learn. So this kind of matter.
So democratic resilience starts with education, which later on enhances the social contract, where you have a population that trusts its institutions, trusts its decision makers. Ambassador Isichwara Budura, you have really witnesses and probably understood better than a lot of us how this resilience process building is happening and continues to do so successfully, if I may, in Japan. You have extensive experience in a number of foreign countries. You know Romanian society and what we deal with. You also understand the dynamics of resilience at the European level and even so globally. What is it that we in Romania can do better in tackling disinformation or any other threats in terms of democratic resilience? Or what do you think we can do? What's a strategy that's successful in Japan, and then maybe we can follow it or do it in our own way?
I would say there is something which already Ambassador UEDA has mentioned: education. In this respect, I think since Meiji era, since the moment of starting modernization and transformation of the society till now, Japan always cherished the way in which educated the younger generation. And on many occasions, the most important part of the family budget was dedicated to education of the children. But beyond that, it was the system at the national level which has developed in a very comprehensive way to educate people in, as Ambassador has managed, and in a democratic spirit, in understanding how democracy is something which begins in the society, in the way in which political system works,
Absolutely.
In the way in which everyone may be able to express his opinions, the way in which may respect and work for the stability, order, and discipline in the society. In this respect, if you check on the Facebook or internet, you'll see how many Romanians traveling to Japan are really amazed by the cleanliness, order, discipline in the public places, starting with the metro, the trains, the local trains. It's something which comes at a very young age in Japan. As ambassador of the European Union, I was using a part of the finances given in the budget of the Embassy of the European Union and encouraging the European Union member states ambassadors to travel across Japan and speaking to schools, to pupils, and to the university students, and to check how much this spirit of learning, of getting proper education and preparing themselves as future citizens is alive, it's producing the right citizens for a society in march for modernization. There are challenges in which, and once again, education, as I said in answering your question, education and the focus, the efforts, the resources given to education, and we know from the policy which is promoted by our president in the presidential mandate about the education as a priority, this is something which in Japan is most cherished, and it's a good example for everyone. For that, there are many foreign students, many foreigners coming to Japan for studying. Secondly, there are things which we also witness here in Romania and in general in Europe as a challenge to this societal resilience. And I would complete the answer, Ambassador, just given to you. There is a demographic decline. In our case, it's because many Romanians went abroad looking for job opportunities, education opportunities, and left the country, at least for a while, for some years. But there is also a decline in terms of natural increase of population. It's decreasing, unfortunately.
Everywhere now.
And plus, another challenge is the aging of population. Of course, there is the plus that Japanese people, because of their healthy diet, because of their discipline and care, they live longer than us. There are many over 100 years. And because of that, the care, the special medical care to be given to this segment of population has very special requirements. Who can do it is a problem. The specialized and well-trained staff, it's not exactly up to the requirements in numbers of qualifications and so on. And because of that, the solutions found by Japan are coming from the recent modern technologies. Artificial intelligence is there. Driverless vehicles are there, developing very fast across the national laboratories, universities, institutes of research. And this is a system which in a very near future will be very evident, very visible in use in many places. Now, there are special institutions of care for the old people where the vehicles go between one building to another, between the hospital and, I don't know, the place they stay or the canteen. The vehicles are driverless vehicles, and the old people can get in without any problem. They don't fear that the vehicle will go in the wrong way, because everything is now a new technology which works properly. Secondly, there are special equipments to assist the physicians, the assistants in such care units, which can help them to move around the elder people, the overweight people, and so on. Then a lot of equipments developed to compensate the lack of human resources and to give the proper care to these elders. Then there are ways in which trying to compensate the demographic deficit, the lack or the decline in human resources. Of course, there is also an opening, like in our case, in trying to receive some foreign workers, provided they learn Japanese language, they adapt to the local conditions in terms of traditions, customs, and so on. Then these are things which I think are very valid and valuable for us because we face the same challenges. Aging society, declining demographics, needs for human resources in many fields, in the economy, in agriculture, in education, and so on. Then these are a few examples which I have witnessed, and really I believe we should increase in the spirit of this strategic partnership, which has many parts relevant to cover this people-to-people exchanges, cultural exchanges, exchanges in the medical field, which would help Romanians to try to absorb, to learn from the good experience of the Japanese friends.
Well, now as we have a strategic partnership, it is even more that we're going to share lessons learned and so on. My last question, that is still on resilience. I mean, everything here is about resilience, but our region has been challenged for many years, and it is so even more today by hybrid threats, warfare information. Much like other countries, I imagine Japan is not immune to hybrid threats. Could you provide your insight in terms of Japan's strategy to enhance resilience from this perspective? Whether it's hybrid, cyber, information warfare, or maritime resilience, which we haven't had the chance to talk, but I'm guessing it's a huge thing in Japan, as you are surrounded, and especially with this new technology, disruptive, that can be sometimes disruptive if used by malign factors. Do you worry about this new technology that is evolving at a speed as never before? Are you subject to threats? Do you feel your society being subject to threats? We do here in EU, in Romania. We have this, and we have had this for many years. How is it the case in Japan?
Well, as I told you, the matter of this, this information, cybersecurity, I mean, something like this is not doesn't have the border, and it doesn't have something to do specifically with the war. So it's a very fundamental thing which we have to tackle. And for example, in Japan as well, we have many cyber attacks, and also, this information, which is abundant in the SNS world. And for example, it is pointed out that that a country is in charge, has a hand in the cybersecurity issue. So we are at the threat of that kind of things. And also, as you told me, the enhancement of the technology is very rapid. So we have to, catch up the situation, and we have to tackle this matter as well. It's a very important, but very at the same time difficult situation, and we are trying hard to how to cope with these matters. For example, we recently everybody is talking about the chat GTP,
Yeah.
and it's a new technology, but at the same time, it's some people say that it's very dangerous. So we are under debate how to regulate the natural use of them. So the new things, new technology comes. Every time new technology comes, we have to think about that. We have to go to the right direction. So we are at the point. I mean, as I told you, this is the turning point of the world. So we have to be very careful about that. And as I told you, two things to tackle inside our country, inside ourselves, and also the cooperation with the international world.
But are these threats, whether it's cyber, hybrid, or are from other states, countries, or because today, as you well know, a lot of these challenges are coming from entities that are hidden, that are either private or different sort of entities.
Yeah.
Is it mostly countries or private or both?
I think both. Everybody can
Absolutely,
recently easily tackle it.
especially in the informational space,
So as I told you, there's no border, so there's no
where everything it takes just a laptop and
yeah, right. Everyone, one individual can do that. So yeah, we have to cope with them. All of
Thank
them.
you.
If I may,
Yeah.
I would like to add on a lighter note, if I may, something which I remember from Japan. I was visiting the National Police Agency, which is sort of a Ministry of Interior in our case, yeah. And I was asking if there is any danger because of the very active Arabic propaganda. The Islam State was doing a lot of propaganda on the internet in trying to recruit people and so on. And the Japanese experts there started to laugh. And I was surprised. I said, why are you laughing? He said, this Islamic State propaganda has no effect in our case. Why? Because they do not have many Japanese language experts, and our Japanese people do not speak Arabic. Then they cannot do it in a proper way to have any influence on us.
That's very true.
Then defend your national language. Keep it special.
My last question to you, Ambassador Istichwaya Budura. Are we witnessing, I mean, we already talked a lot about Ukraine, about a new NATO liaison office probably opening in Tokyo very soon. There's a lot of historic decisions or things that are happening right now. It seems like it's in the past 70 years, we've never witnessed so many of these historic decisions at once. Do you see this as sort of a new shift, a new, as David Rockefeller put it, a new world order? Do you think we're witnessing a tremendous shift in international relations? Do you see as the old international based order is changing?
Yes, I think so. And very much, once again, I'm using this excellent moment of the G7 summit in Hiroshima, hosted by the Prime Minister of Japan, because it shows how much there is a good understanding at the level of the Japanese leadership, and at the same time among the G7 leading countries, that they cannot continue maintaining the international liberal order in a way which would exclude separate the rest of the international community without recruiting their participation, understanding, and support. Because of that, I was praising and saying that it's the right gesture to invite the representatives, the leading nations of the emerging, what Secretary of State Blinken called the rest of the world. They are part of this world. It's something which we have to acknowledge, understand, that has expectations, has ideas about how the human rights, the democracy have to be promoted in a way which respects their national identity, their values. How to couple that is something which amounts to a challenge for the G7. Because of that, I was saying that the main challenge for the G7 will be to welcome a coupling, a connectivity with the G20 agenda, because the objectives the G7 countries, developed economies, and states are trying to promote cannot be fulfilled, implemented, without the resources, dynamics coming from this developing world. Because of that, India, Indonesia is there, and the ambassador was kind to mention China too in responding to one of your questions. Finding the right way of making China a partner, not only a rival or a competitor in the conceptual triad of the European Union, but really a partner, it is a challenge. It's a very complex issue. But again, I'm ready to turn towards Japan and listening to the Japanese historical wisdom. Japanese experience in history was having fantastic cooperation in the first millennia with the Chinese, learning a lot in terms of administration, law, history, writing, the Chinese ideograms being used in Japan in those centuries. But later on, China, at its turn, learned about the modernization from the Meiji era for the opening, from the technology in the moment in which after 1978, Deng Xiaoping, the architect of the reform and the opening, once again offered the opportunity for Japan and China working together. Then once again, this summit now, G7, is proving a moment of the opening. Then it is in the making a new international order, provided all the participants, not only the G7 leaders, including European Union leaders, but also the other ones from different regions of the world, Africa, Latin America, Asia, will understand that there is a need for better cooperation, better dialogue. Of course, first and foremost, again, probably the joint statement of the leaders in G7 forum will stress on the priorities and values. The way in which make the others to understand, support, and embrace these values is the biggest challenge. And this will be the fundamental thing on which to build the international resilience and the international new order.
Thank you. Whereas we draw to the end, Your Excellency Ambassador Hiroshi UEDA,